David Chang became a superstar chef thanks to his gregarious TV-friendly personality. But how has he changed from the 26-year-old who opened a restaurant with only $130,000? As a child, Chang golfed competitively. No surprise, considering the fact that his father owned a golf supply store. However, Chang took a big step back from the sport when he was just 13, and later failed to qualify for his high school's golf team. This was a pivotal moment that he only occasionally regrets when watching the Masters golf tournament.
Makes me wish I had never quit golf, which is the only time I've ever said that to myself since I quit golf.
In college, he decided to study religion based on his personal disinterest in his family's Presbyterian faith. For spiritual guidance, he preferred the work of Henry David Thoreau, one of the most prominent Transcendentalist thinkers of the 19th century. After graduating, though, Chang still hadn't quite settled on a career path. He tried his hand at some office jobs, but found those unfulfilling as well, which led to his next career move, but it still wasn't cooking. After his stint as an office worker, Chang landed a job teaching English in Japan. He ended up living and working in a small town a little over an hour south of Osaka. It was during his time in Japan that his interest in food began. He began to study what it took to prepare food in a commercial kitchen, doing his best with his limited Japanese language skills to shadow the chefs at a local ramen shop. Ramen was actually a big part of his culinary journey. In typical college student fashion, Chang made instant ramen a staple of his diet. During his junior year of college, he studied abroad in London and frequented a ramen chain called Wagamama, which first gave him the idea that a career in food might be in his future. To follow that dream, though, Chang eventually decided he needed to leave Japan and return to the US to get a formal culinary education. Chang's career pivot went against the advice of his father, who had worked in commercial kitchens himself and didn't care for the experience. Still, Chang returned to the United States and began studying at a school in New York City called the French Culinary Institute. After graduating in the year 2000, when he was about 22 years old, he landed a position as a line cook at prolific restaurateur Jean-Georges Van Richten's upscale French restaurant, the Mercer Kitchen. While still at the Mercer, Chang decided he wanted to work at celebrity chef Tom Colicchio's new venture called Kraft. After that, he transitioned to prep work at another fancy French restaurant under the proprietorship of acclaimed chef Daniel Boulou. While he was still working at Kraft, Chang started to dream of opening his own restaurant, but he felt he still had a lot to learn, so he returned to Japan to perfect the art of noodle making. The basis for his return trip was an opportunity to work in a ramen shop in Tokyo owned by a family friend. After finding out that this particular ramen shop wasn't really all that great, he left it behind for a gig making noodles at a restaurant located in the Park Hyatt Tokyo Hotel. In total, he spent approximately 2 years studying his craft in Japan. His decision to pursue Japanese noodle making rather than remain in the world of fine French dining was inspired by both his appreciation for restaurant culture in Japan as well as a desire to set himself apart from his peers. In 2020, he told NPR, "I think if I was better at cooking compared to my peer group, especially the restaurants I was in, maybe I would have only cooked French food. But so much of how I wound up today was because I didn't fit in, and I had to find my way and get some kind of expertise that no one else had." In 2004, after returning from his 2-year stint in Japan, with $130,000 he borrowed from his dad and some of his dad's friends, Chang opened up his first restaurant, Momofuku Noodle Bar. Since everyone he approached personally turned down the opportunity to own a stake in the business, Chang teamed up with a chef named Joaquin Baca, who responded to an online ad Chang posted looking for a business partner. Momofuku Noodle Bar's menu initially consisted of just a few dishes and resembled something far closer to that of a traditional ramen restaurant than the unique Asian fusion cuisine Chang would come to be associated with. It was a struggle. Chang and Baca had to learn on the fly how to run a business, and the restaurant initially failed to bring in customers. Eventually, the pair decided that as long as the restaurant was struggling, they might as well have fun with it. It was the creative dishes they started serving after hitting rock bottom that turned their fortunes around and led to Momofuku Noodle Bar becoming a major player in the mid-2000s New York City restaurant scene. Despite Momofuku Noodle Bar's struggles, Chang decided to open a second restaurant in 2006. At first, this new spot revolved mostly around a Korean dish called sam and was appropriately called Momofuku Sambar. Chang's take on the dish meant presenting it in a manner akin to a Chipotle burrito, allowing customers to customize the ingredients and even wrapping it in a non-traditional flour tortilla. While that idea sounds well suited to the restaurant landscape of the 2020s, back in 2006, Sambar struggled to attract customers. Chang opened Sambar with a $1 million bank loan, so the restaurant's failure could have been costly. To save the business, Chang had to adapt by completely retooling the core concept. Key to its big turnaround was opening for late-night service and catering to an audience consisting largely of New York City chefs who had just finished up their shifts. The late-night menu was considerably more upscale and included the large-format Bosam dish that would become a staple of Chang's future restaurants. Chang told The New Yorker that he began struggling with mental health while still a young teenager, saying that this contributed to his failure to make his high school golf team. "I was too much of a head case." The first time Chang visited a psychiatrist was in 2003, just prior to opening Momofuku Noodle Bar. In therapy, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He told NPR in 2020 that the first experience he can recount with mania was when he was living in Japan. Then, after he returned from the US, he struggled with depression, reaching his mental health low point when he was with Cafe Bolu. He even attributed the rashness with which he opened Momofuku Noodle Bar to depression. He told NPR, "A 26-year-old with very little experience should never open a restaurant, and that's what happened. If I wasn't depressed, I probably wouldn't name the restaurant as silly-sounding as Momofuku." In that same interview, Chang owned up to treating his employees poorly once he became a restaurateur, and described change as a still ongoing process.
At times, do I want to, have a totalitarian state? Yes.
By the time Chang decided to open his third restaurant in 2008, his career had taken off. Food and Wine magazine named him one of the best chefs of 2006. The following year, the James Beard Foundation selected him as its Rising Star Chef of the Year. Bon Appetit and GQ both named him Chef of the Year in 2007, whereas Momofuku Noodle Bar and Sambar were inspired by casual dining in Japan and China. Momofuku Co. required a reservation to sit in its exclusive 12-seat dining room and try its tasting menu. This time around, Chang's ambition paid off right from the start when the restaurant earned 2 Michelin stars in 2009. Momofuku Co.'s success kicked off Chang's ascent from New York City celebrity to international superstar. In 2011, he both opened a Momofuku-branded restaurant in Australia and further expanded his footprint in New York. The following year, he opened a multi-restaurant space in Toronto and continued to expand his empire throughout the decade, before changes in the restaurant marketplace led to several closures in the 2020s, including Momofuku Co. Despite the reach of his restaurant empire, most people were first exposed to Chang through TV rather than through his food. In 2010, Chang landed his first recurring TV role in the acclaimed HBO drama Treme. Food plays a major role in Treme, and Chang portrays a fictionalized version of himself in 7 episodes. The same year, he became a regular fixture of food TV, with appearances on numerous cooking and talk shows. Heck, he even won $1 million for charity on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Your metallic testicles just won you $1 million for your charity.
Chang also became a Netflix star in 2018 as the host of Ugly Delicious. This turned out to be the start of a fruitful partnership. Not only did Ugly Delicious return for a second season, but Chang subsequently hosted Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner and Dinner Time Live with David Chang for the streaming service. Ultimately, Chang's TV career may well have even more of an impact in establishing his name recognition than his restaurant work. Michelin stars and a multi-series Netflix deal aren't even the full extent of Chang's reach in the culinary world. He's also a celebrated author and publisher. Chang's first cookbook, Momofuku, hit bookstore shelves in 2009 and landed a spot on the New York Times bestseller list. His subsequent cookbook, Cooking at Home, and his 2020 memoir, Eat a Peach, also achieved this honor. And in 2011, Chang and a couple of co-editors published the first issue of Lucky Peach, a magazine that reshaped what food journalism could look like. And his media empire also includes 2 podcasts, The Dave Chang Show and Recipe Club. For what it's worth, The Dave Chang Show is award-winning, like just about everything Chang does. It won the Best Food Podcast Award at the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards in 2020 and was nominated for the same award in 2023. Chang was engaged for the first time in 2013, but he and his then-fiancée broke off their engagement before marrying. It's not a matter of public record precisely when he began seeing his current partner, but he and Grace Seo Chang eloped and were married around 2017. Whereas David Chang seems to thrive on attention, Grace Seo Chang is a private person, so details about her are scarce. Their first son, Hugo, was born in 2019. They had a second child named Gus about 2 years later. David Chang told NPR that cooking for his wife when she was pregnant for the first time changed his relationship to preparing food. "I had never been in a position where I'm trying to generally feed someone else with love, and I just want to nurture them, and cooking for my wife was the best."
I texted Dave one day and I told him the first meal I want once this baby's out is sushi. Good sushi if we can.
Cooking for his children changed his conception of food further still, as he attributes cooking for his family with awakening new insights. "I care more about serving a bowl of soup that looks like just plain old soup, but made with love." As David Chang's reach grew, Momofuku became not just the name of a few restaurants, but a brand that covered a range of business endeavors. In 2019, Chang appointed Marguerite Zabar Mariscal, who worked her way up from a Momofuku internship, as the company's CEO. Then, in 2023, a series of Momofuku restaurant closures, in conjunction with the success of the brand's prepackaged goods and a burgeoning major domo media brand, resulted in non-restaurant income becoming a key part of Momofuku's balance sheet. Momofuku, in its new corporate state, became the center of a controversy in April 2024, when the brand attempted to enforce its trademark of the phrases Chili Crunch and Chili Crunch. Chang quickly backtracked in response to public backlash and issued an apology.